Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Alex Ramsey. I'm a 35-year-old and part owner in a successful construction business. At this point in the story, I was married to Julia, a beautiful 33-year-old woman. She worked as an executive assistant at a major law firm. We have a 9-year-old daughter, Lily. We own a home in a nice suburb and a cabin on a lake in northern Michigan. Julia and I met when I was doing some remodeling work at her parents' house. She was still living at home and was not in a good mood, having recently ended her engagement with a guy named Trip, a nickname he'd picked up in college. His real name was Richard. Richard's mother had been au pair and came back from Germany pregnant. She named her son Richard, believing it was the name of her German lover, though it was probably an alias. Eventually, she married a former classmate, Edward, a man she had ignored in school but now saw as a good opportunity to raise her child. Edward adopted Richard, and their family became successful. They had 2 daughters and built Edward's small bookstore into a chain of stores, which they sold to a large corporation. With their wealth, they bought a large home where Edward, his wife, and their daughters bred horses. Edward loved his stepson and gave him everything he wanted. As a result, Richard became a spoiled, arrogant man. He was successful with women, until he met Julia. For the first time, he was truly in love, but Julia wanted to wait until marriage. Richard, used to getting what he wanted, saw this as a challenge, until his true nature was revealed. After catching him cheating, Julia broke off the engagement. I, wanting to lift her spirits, asked her out. To my surprise, she said yes. We had a great evening, and she told me she had decided to change her lifestyle, to experience the freedom her friends had. Perhaps as revenge against Richard, she slept with me that night. But she didn't want any further dates. Soon, it was rumored that Julia was living a party lifestyle, having short-term flings, including, ironically, with some of Richard's friends. Meanwhile, Richard left for college, continuing his womanizing but never getting over the fact that Julia, the one woman he had truly wanted, had denied him yet slept with his friends. His ego was hurt. A year later, I ran into Julia again at a party. We reconnected, and she told me that her wild phase was over. As we spent more time together, our relationship became serious. We became a couple, and 3 years later, married when she became pregnant with Lily. A few months after our wedding, I was doing a plumbing job for one of Richard's old friends. He smirked as he told me, Richard swore he'd sleep with Julia one day and make sure everyone knew. He said Richard had never failed in sleeping with a married woman when he really tried. This wasn't exactly good news for a newlywed. When I talked to Julia, she promised she would never give Richard the chance to be alone with her, much less act on his vow. Over time, the warning faded into the past. Years later, we heard Richard had married a rich woman and moved away. With him seemingly out of our lives, Julia and I continued in what I would call a normal marriage, with its good times and bad. Then, out of nowhere, it all came rushing back. It was during the weather forecast. The presenter was giving good news for the weekend when Julia suddenly turned to me with a serious look. Alex, I need you to listen. I have something important to tell you. I looked at her, a little confused. Okay, what is it? Did something happen today? No, not today. It's something from the past. She hesitated. Before you and I met, do you remember my ex-fiancé, Richard? I frowned. Oh, you mean Trip? Yeah, I remember him. The guy who cheated on you. Why? Is he back in town? Julia had gone pale. No, he lives in California now, but he was recently here for a wedding. That's where he met Sarah Miller. You know her, right? Julia and Richard hit it off, and when he found out she knew me, he was curious. Asked a lot of questions about me. She ended up giving him my number. I felt a chill. I knew exactly what Richard had promised to do. I kept my voice steady. Did he call you? Yes, she said. We've talked a few times. Catching up. Catching up? I said. You were together for what, 3, maybe 4 months? He cheated on you. Hardly worth catching up about. You don't understand, she said, her voice pleading. We had plans back then. I just wanted to talk about them. Plans? That was supposed to be in the past. What's the real issue? Julia hesitated before saying, he wants to see me. Of course, he does, I said. He swore he'd sleep with you one day and prove it to everyone. She flinched, her face pale. Don't be ridiculous. He just wants to catch up as friends. Nothing else. Fine, I said. Invite him over. We can have him and his wife for dinner. Julia shook her head. No. He's not coming here. He won a free week at a resort in Hawaii and invited me to go with him. His wife can't make it. She's afraid of flying. But she trusts him and has no problem with him meeting an old friend. I stared at her in shock. You've lost your damn mind. Please, calm down and listen, she begged. I've already said yes. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You and I could never afford a place like this right now. My anger grew as I shouted, do you still love that creep? Julia's face paled. No, of course not. I love you. And you know that you are my only love. I laughed. Is that what you call love? Running off to Hawaii for a week with that creep? No, no, no. Of course not, she stammered. Have I said anything about that? He hasn't asked anything from me, and I haven't promised him anything. The truth is, I have no intention of being unfaithful. I'd had enough. My voice got louder. No sex? No cheating? Then why do you think he's taking you to a resort? If you think he's not planning to sleep with you every chance he gets, you're either lying or incredibly naive. And don't be surprised when his pictures show up online. She gasped, shocked. Do you really think so little of me? Just because Richard got a free week in Hawaii and invited me since his wife couldn't go? I'd have been crazy to turn down such a great free vacation. I sneered. Did his wife tell you this? No? Then yeah, I think little of you. And remember this. Once that gets out, it can't be taken back. You can never wash that reputation away once you're back home. Tears filled her eyes as she sobbed. You'll see. Nothing bad will happen in Hawaii. No one will even know I'm going with Richard. I laughed coldly. No one but me? You're out of your damn mind if you think I'll keep this a secret. Soon, everyone will see what you've done. And my humiliation. Now she looked scared. The reality of her free trip was becoming much clearer than she had thought. She whispered, please don't do this to us. I promise I'll make it up to you when I get back. There's only one way to make it right, I said, my voice cold. Take out your phone, call that creep, and cancel the trip. Do it now. Her lips trembled. I can't do that. And that was it. The final straw. My marriage was over. I felt a strange relief as I said, then have a nice trip. I walked into the living room and poured myself a glass of whiskey. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. The next morning, she seemed to have regained her confidence. With a smile, she teased, do you still think so little of me? I looked at her coldly. Have you cancelled your trip? Her smile faded. No, and I can't. Then yes, I still think very little of you. Her expression darkened. Who cares about your opinion, she snapped. We ate breakfast in silence. At work, I made a call. Sarah Green answered, sounding surprised. Would you like to have lunch with me? I asked. Sarah lived a few houses down from us. She was the mother of my daughter's best friend and had recently separated from her husband. I had always liked her. Over lunch, after some small talk, I leaned in and said, I have a secret to tell you, but you have to promise to keep it. Her eyebrows lifted. A secret? What's the catch? No catch, I said. In fact, there's a gift involved. I want you and your daughter to come with me and Lily to Disney World in Florida. All expenses paid. Sarah looked surprised. What's the condition? There isn't one. Not before the trip, not during, not after. I just think it would be easier for me and more fun for Lily to have you two along. She thought about it. What does Julia think about this? Julia won't care. She's too busy planning her trip to Hawaii with her ex-boyfriend, I said. Sarah was silent. After a pause, she asked, "Can you tell me more about the trip?" No plans yet. If you say yes, we'll plan it together. An hour after lunch, Sarah called me back. Okay, I'll come. That evening, she had already arranged a babysitter for her daughter, and we met at my office to start planning. I expected her to want separate rooms, but to my surprise, she suggested a family suite so the girls could stay together. I agreed. From that day on, Sarah and I talked daily. We booked our flights to Orlando, rented a car, and got a hotel near Disney World. Meanwhile, at home, Julia and I barely spoke. The only change was that I had lost all interest in sleeping with her. If she noticed, she didn't seem to care. One day, while I was getting my car washed, I found a folder she had left in the glove compartment. It had printouts from the Hawaii Resort's website and an email from Richard with their flight information. It was like she was doing this on purpose. Instead, it was the final proof I needed. My plan was clear, and soon, Julia would find out. Julia probably would have cancelled her trip if I had given her the ultimatum, but I didn't see any reason to give her that chance to save our marriage. In my mind, she had already betrayed me the moment she said yes to Richard's invitation to a luxury getaway in Hawaii. She wasn't naive. She knew exactly what he expected, and she had agreed. Yes, I was going on a trip with Sarah, and I had told her there would be no conditions between us, but that was a different situation. Sarah was single, and I had already filed for divorce when we left. What happened after our trip would be up to us, not a betrayal like Julia's. Julia didn't argue when I told her that Lily and I would be going to Disney World while she was in Hawaii. She didn't ask for any details. Maybe we had both lost interest in each other, though for different reasons, until the last night before her trip. She was packing while I went to bed early. She tried to come near me, but I pushed her away. "Don't touch me," I shouted. She flinched. "Please talk to me. We'll talk when we're back from our trips." She left early the next morning. Once I knew they were on their way to Hawaii, I made a call to Richard's wife. She was angry. "He's gone too far this time," she snapped. It hadn't been hard to find her. A quick call to Julia's friend had told me where Richard lived. People with unusual names are easy to find. A quick online search gave me the family's phone number. Then I wrote my letter to Julia. "Dear Julia, your old and new boyfriend, Richard, is a terrible liar. His wife told me that she was working while her husband enjoyed a week in Hawaii. She said she was looking forward to her vacation. Maybe you should have spoken to her instead of believing everything that he told you. She has promised to come to Hawaii as soon as she can for a serious talk with your lover, and you. Enclosed, please find copies of the divorce papers the court received today. From now on, you are free to do whatever you want without having to care about me." Of course, you didn't care much before either. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in Hawaii reading this letter. Alex, your soon-to-be ex-husband. I emailed the letter and the divorce papers to their hotel. It didn't take long for the calls to start. My phone rang repeatedly once Julia had checked in. I didn't answer, but I read her text messages. An hour after the first message, she sent another. "I'm coming home tomorrow so we can talk." I replied, "You didn't share a hotel room with Richard by mistake. You went there on purpose. Now you'll have to deal with the results. No reason to complain. Lily and I will be away for a few days. I don't care where you are." Later that evening, Richard's wife called. She was already in Hawaii and had demanded that Richard kick Julia out of their hotel room. 15 minutes later, Richard called her back, confirming that Julia had left the room. That meant she had checked out shortly after arriving. Richard's wife doubted they had been in the mood for any romance after that. Sarah, the girls, and I left for our trip the next morning. We flew to Orlando and picked up our rental car. Getting to the hotel was easy, thanks to a GPS. The girls were excited to be together, and Sarah and I got along great. The only issue was that our family suite had 2 queen beds. Sarah and I looked at each other and laughed. That problem was easily solved. I barely thought about Julia, though she returned home the very next day. She sent many text messages, swearing that she hadn't cheated and had spent the night alone at another hotel. I replied, "You were unfaithful the moment you accepted his invitation, and you left because his wife confronted him, not because of any change of heart on your part." Sarah never got involved in those messages. We spent 2 wonderful days at Disney World and another at Universal Studios. On our last night, after the girls were asleep, Sarah whispered, "Alex, I love you." "I love you too, Sarah." We were intimate that night, careful not to wake the girls. It was a special night, a new beginning. Later, Sarah asked if I would still love her once we returned home. I promised her that real love wasn't about where you were. The next morning, she made an offer. "You and Lily can move in with me." I hesitated. "Are you serious?" She nodded. "If you meant what you said about loving me, my home is yours." I agreed. We knew it was quick. We had only spent a few days together and had only seen each other at our best. But we also knew that taking chances was important to find happiness. Julia was angry when she realized what was happening. She cried as I moved my things to Sarah's house, begging me to stay. But she had ruined any chance we had the moment she chose Hawaii over our marriage. My first night at Sarah's house was amazing. We spent hours together. I didn't understand how her ex-husband had ever been unfaithful to such a wonderful woman. No one is perfect, but I was sure we could work through any issues together. That confidence was tested sooner than expected. A month into our new life, I got an anonymous letter at work. Inside was a printed photo showing Sarah at a party, wearing very little clothing. The message said it was well known that Sarah had also slept with Richard, and I should know what she had been up to. At first, I was angry, but something told me to look closer. After calming down, I looked at the photo carefully. Even with the low-quality print, I noticed some things that were off. Her watch wasn't the one she had worn since we met, and her hair was a little shorter than it was now. That evening, I gave Sarah the letter and the picture. "Can you explain this?" I asked, watching her closely. Sarah said she had always thought that Richard had either slept with her or, more likely, assaulted her when she was heavily intoxicated at a party years ago. However, he had always denied it. When she saw the picture, she laughed and handed me an album. She showed me pictures from a game at a Christmas party held by her company. The pictures showed the date and time. In them, Sarah and several other women were lined up, all doing the same thing. It was a competition where they had to walk across the floor, but they weren't wearing their own underwear. Sarah and I had agreed that what we did before we met was in the past. I didn't care about what she had done years ago. Our real concern was finding out who had faked the pictures. The person who altered the images was skilled at Photoshop, showing that someone who disliked Sarah, me, or both of us had done it. We never found out who it was, but after Sarah showed the picture to some co-workers and publicly offered a reward for finding the person responsible, the harassment stopped. From that moment, Sarah and I only grew closer, knowing that some people were jealous of our relationship. Julia and I decided to sell our house. She used her share of the money with help from her parents to buy me out. We agreed to share custody of Lily, and despite the arrangement, she spent a lot of time with both of us, even during Julia's time.